again. Good morning, bonjour, welcome, bienvenue. Welcome everybody to the MuxLab Digital Signage Solutions presentation. I will be working with you today on this topic. My name is Jose Mosota. I'm the president of Fremen Solutions. I'm a consultant focusing on AV training. I hold a CTS and a CTS installer from Abixa. I'm also an HDBaseT certified trainer. I'm Dante certified level 3 and an SDBOE certified design partner. I worked quite a few years on the structural cabling industry, and during that time I was also for 2 years the director of Big C for the region of Canada. Now, today, the purpose of this webinar, our goals, we have two main goals. Number one is to actually discuss with you the technological side of digital signage. What is digital signage? What is it about? What do I have to take into consideration when I want to implement a digital signage solution? And after that, we will review the solutions that MuxLab can offer to you when it comes to implementing your digital signage projects. It is very important that you participate in this webinar. Please feel free to write on the chat thread any questions that you may have, also any comments that you want to add, anything that you want to share with the rest of the audience. Because actually sharing the knowledge of everybody that is here today is one of the ways that we can learn more. And remember, please, that there are no such thing as wrong questions. When you think that the question is too simple or I shouldn't ask that, probably means that there is at least 10, 15 other people that are thinking the same. And if nobody asks the question, then nobody gets an answer. So please participate as much as possible. Now, why should we talk about digital signage? Well, if you are an end user, you're going to use it to get in touch with your customers. If you're an installer or an integrator, you're going to use it to actually install and create the systems that your customers require. If you're a designer, obviously you're going to design those systems. But the important part of it is that globally, it's a $23 billion business. In North America, it comes up to about $5 billion. So there is a lot of interest. There is a lot of investment in digital signage. So for whatever reason you arrive at this webinar today, I think you are in the right place because digital signage pertains to all of us in the AV business. It is projected to continue growing at a 7.5% annual compound rate. And if you look at the table here, where we have different color bands for different verticals that actually utilize digital signage, you will see that retail is the area that utilizes more digital signage, but there is some also in corporate. There's quite a bit in banking. Healthcare has some digital signage also, and that is growing because of all the measures that are taking place due to the pandemic and the fact that people don't want to communicate face-to-face. You also have in education, there is digital signage. Transportation definitely utilizes digital signage, and there are many other applications. So no matter what kind of vertical you focus in as a company, as a provider, or no matter what kind of company you are as an end user, all of us are actually associated with one or more applications of digital signage. And if we look now at the particular type of way that we present digital signage to our customers, we find that video walls is a very important way to present digital signage. We also have regular video screens, so not a wall, but just a screen. Transparent LED screens are growing because of the appeal that they have when the presentation is more artistic, for example, or you want to wow the customer with something. Digital posters, it's another important application of digital signage. Kiosks are very, very relevant, especially for the same reason we said before, especially for the fact that we're in a pandemic and we want to reduce the interaction of people with people. So we use kiosks that allow then us to interact with our customers. So again, as you can see, you're going to be dealing with digital signage. You have to become familiar with all the different ways in which we actually deliver digital signage to the customer. And if you look carefully at the numbers in these two slides, they differ slightly. And you know, every time that somebody does market research related to a particular application, there are always going to be disagreement, but both of them agree more or less with a $5 billion market and a 6 to 7% growth for this type of application. Now, InfoComm 21 just took place in Orlando. They moved it to October because of the pandemic, and they ran a survey there because they had a whole thread on digital signage, and people actually selected these 5 points as something that is our trends in the digital signage industry that I wanted to share with you also. One of them is that touchless interactivity is rising. So again, because of the pandemic, people don't actually even want to touch things. So the fact that you can use a QR code to interact with something, or that you can do it mobile, is becoming very appealing. You have seen it, for example, in menus in restaurants, even though that's not directly digital signage, but then your own mobile device becomes the source of the digital signage that you're going to see after scanning a QR code. The other one is that people are looking for more out-of-the-box solutions. So they don't want to have any more the limitation of having a rectangular screen or a square screen. They actually want unique shapes, and the manufacturers of the screens, because of the technologies that they're developing, are being able to provide people with more and more options when it comes to those unique shapes. Another trend is that people really don't want to see scenes. If they're looking at a kind of video wall, for example, they don't actually want to see scenes unless, as we're going to discuss later, you're showing different content in different portions of the video wall. So this is leading to more and more direct view LEDs type products where you actually don't have or can have no bezels. The other point is that people want simple interfaces. They want to make sure that the user has a good experience, and the interface between the digital signage system and the user has to be simple enough that it doesn't take too much to actually interact with that particular application. And finally, they are seeing a lot of hybrid installations where print is being used with digital. So you may have a large area in which you're having a digital signage system, maybe a screen, maybe a wall, but then you also have some print material that is being shown in that particular location. So these are 5 trends that came up from people that work continuously on digital signage at InfoComm 21. So what are the digital signage elements? Let's say that you are interested in having a digital signage system. Well, there are essentially 6 things that you need to have if you're going to have a digital signage system. The first one is the content. You definitely have to show something in your digital signage system. So that is the content. The second one is you need a CMS, or content management software. The content in digital signage typically varies throughout the day according to the time of the day, or the day of the week, or the month of the year. So you're going to be showing things that are continuously changing in your digital signage element from all the content that you have created. And in order to manage that, you need some kind of content management software. Later on, we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail MuxLab DigiSign Plus, which would be the CMS that MuxLab offers you to do that. Then, after you have your content and you have decided when to show it, at what time, what day, etc., and where, then you need to play it back. And in order to play it back, you need something that is capable of accepting that content, either coming from a network or actually from their internal memory, or a stick, but you need something that will take that content and then play it back, typically as an HDMI output into the particular type of screen or display that you're going to use for your digital signage. And we're going to also see in a little bit more detail the solution that MuxLab offers to you. Then the next one is your display. There are many, many types of displays. We're going to talk about them, and you have to select the type that actually agrees with your particular presentation, with your particular content, with your particular goal. So you should be aware of the different types of displays and what kind of characteristics they offer you when you're doing a digital signage system. And finally, the infrastructure, because you need to be able to support all the communication in that digital signage system. You need to make sure that you have connection to the network. If you're using a playback device connected to the network, you need to make sure that that network has the correct infrastructure to be able to transfer the bandwidth that you want to manage. You need to make sure that your device, playback device, is connected to your display in the proper way. So all that is related to the infrastructure that supports that. And we have one last one that it's in red, because it's very important, because it doesn't matter the other 5 elements that we have here. They may be good, but you need to have a strategy. And you actually need to be able to answer the 6 questions of the digital signage strategy. Otherwise, your digital signage messaging is going to be lost. So what do you want to accomplish? Why is it that you want to have a digital signage? Who is going to be your audience? Is it going to be people that come into your fast food restaurant? Is it going to be people that comes into your sport bar? Is it people that are just walking around Times Square and they are looking at the digital signage in Times Square? Is people that are walking along in an airport and they need screens that tell them the information about the flights, but there's also digital signage that entices them to go shop or be in touch with a certain brand. Another important one is who owns the project. There has to be somebody at the end user point at the company that is going to implement the digital signage that owns the project, and that is going to be the reference point to make sure that the project can be executed as the customer needs the project to be executed. Another one is, where are you going to show the content? The area where you're going to show the content, it's important. Is there going to be a lot of outdoor light? Is it indoors? Is there a very bright room? Is it a very dark corner? Is it a very high screen? Is it a very low screen? So where are you going to show the content? It's important. And determining when are you going to show the content, it's also very, very important. All those questions are trying to answer the last one, which is, why are you doing it? This is like, I want an 8K television. Why do you want an 8K television? Well, because now they are available and they're becoming popular. But there is no 8K content. Well, maybe I should think about it. Same thing with digital signage. Why do you want to do digital signage? Unless there is a reason for it, unless you want to accomplish something, and unless you can answer these questions, then your investment in digital signage may be lost or may not give you the return that you were expecting. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the displays. There's a variety of displays available in the market. The let's say the earlier ones, or the ones that are becoming now legacy displays, are what we call LCDs. And when we call them LCDs, we normally mean that the source of the light that illuminates the liquid crystal displays is coming from CCFLs, which are cold cathode fluorescent lights. So it's a kind of lighting that is behind the LCD screen and that actually illuminates the screen to give you the images. Those type of displays are cheap. They are old technology. They tend to be heavy, so that has to be taken into consideration where we're going to mount those displays. and they typically consume more power than other kinds of more modern displays. LCD evolved into LED. The LEDs are actually still using the liquid crystal display, but instead of illuminating the liquid crystal screen with cold cathode fluorescent lights, they do it with LEDs. And they have two ways in which they do it. They have what is called a backlighting, where there is a whole series of LEDs in the back that are reflecting and giving you the illumination on the LCD, or what they call edge lighting, where they put the LEDs only on the side of the screen, and they put some reflective material that allows the light from those LEDs to come then into the places where it has to go. There is also what is called QLED, and QLEDs are still regular LCD type screens with LEDs, but they use a special kind of LED to do the illumination called QLED. These screens are more expensive than LCDs. They do have a brighter image and use less power. And very important, if you use screens that are done with edge lighting, they can be thinner. So if you're looking for a thin display, then an LED with edge lighting is a key one. There's a note here at the bottom. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that in 2 or 3 slides, and that is that for viewing distances, where can the people stand and look at your display, you should refer to 2 things. One is the discus standard on viewing, and the other is the manufacturer's recommendation on their particular distance for the pixel pitch of their displays. Then, sorry. The next evolution of displays became the OLEDs. So OLEDs are organic LEDs. In this case, there's no liquid crystal display. In this case, we're going to use directly the organic OLEDs. They are more expensive than the regular LEDs, but they give you much better contrast. And actually, people will always choose contrast over resolution. Our human eye is very, very sensitive to contrast, and people love images with a lot of contrast. And they're ideal when you want a wow factor. They tend to be more expensive. They are the most expensive type of display from that point of view. Now, for digital signage, we have also available what is called direct view LEDs. And in this particular case of direct view LEDs, we actually use the LEDs. We use a series of 3 LEDs for each pixel, a blue, a red, and a green that allows us to create the color that the pixel has to have. And we can change the size of those LEDs, what is called the pixel pitch, or the dot per inch, or the dot per millimeter, depending on the units that you want to have. But we can change the size of those pixels as a function of the distance from where the spectator or the person that is interacting with the digital signage system is going to be located. So those are really true pixels. It allows you the possibility of being totally bezel-free. They give you a much better contrast and a great viewing angle. So even if you are a little, quite a bit off angle with the screen, you can still have great viewing angle. They are very energy efficient, and you can actually purchase them with different pixel pitch. When you are purchasing a regular LCD, a regular LED, a regular OLED screen, you have the resolution of your screen, and that resolution tells you the number of pixels that are in your screen, and that determines the number of LEDs that are in there, and that determines then your pixel pitch, and that it's fixed. When you're actually using direct view LEDs, you have the option of asking your supplier to provide you screens with different pixel pitch, and we're going to see in a few slides what does that mean in terms of what you're going to do with that particular screen. The characteristics of all these screens from the point of view of brightness, and brightness is normally measured in nits. The human eye can detect differences in brightness that screens are not able to do it. When we enter a dark room, our eyes immediately start detecting shadows and areas with a little bit of light. So we typically can go from 0 to 10,000 nits with our eyes. An LCD screen can do between 450 and 1,500 nits typically. An LED screen can go much higher. However, the higher than you go on brightness, the more expensive it's going to be. They have introduced some screens nowadays that can do 6,500 nits, and that gives you a brightness that works very well outdoors. If you're putting your display outdoors and it's a display that can actually withstand the elements, then having a higher brightness allows you to see during bright daylight. OLEDs typically, incredibly enough, have very low brightness. They only go to about 800 nits, but because of the fact that they give you better contrast, because the way the OLEDs are displaying the image, that compensates by the brightness and gives you an excellent display, even though it looks as 800 nits as something that is not so bright. If you're going to be installing a digital signage display, in terms of the lifetime of that display, commercial equipment typically is rated for over 60,000 hours, although most manufacturers claim that they can actually work for 100,000 hours, which would be 10 years of usage. But LG claims also 100,000 for OLEDs, while many manufacturers only claim 30 to 60,000 hours for OLED. So you'll have to determine based on your application and the amount of budget that you have for your system, what are you going to invest in terms of the lifetime that you're going to get. The bezels, which in some cases are important to have, because if you have a video wall and in each component of the video wall, you're going to be showing a different kind of information. If you're going to build what it's called a digital canvas, where you're going to be showing the news and the time and a video and some other informations, then you may want to have visible bezels to help the user that interacts with that video wall identify what they are looking at. However, in many other applications, you may not want to have bezels. And for that, you can actually do it with a direct view LED. There's a mistake in that slide, I'm sorry. So no bezel, free of bezel on the direct view LEDs. And on regular screens, you can get it as thin as 1 millimeter in case that you don't want to go with a direct view LED. We have the display. So now that we have the display, is where should we put that display and what size of display do we need to make sure that the viewer can actually view the information that we want to display. And for that, I'm going to mention to you now 2 things that you can do to do those calculations. And hopefully that's going to help you not only for digital signage, but also for your regular installs of screens for viewing. If you have never heard of Discus, then you should look into it, because that is a standard for distance for image viewing in 2 dimensions that has been developed by Avixa, and that is becoming quite a standard in any bid, in any project that people are presenting nowadays. When Avixa looks at Discus, they look at 2 different kinds of viewing. One of them is what is called analytical viewing, when you want to see the detail in the pixels. You would do that for medical imaging, for example. That's rare for the digital signage. You normally don't have analytical viewing, but I wanted to present you with the formula in case that you have regular analytical viewing applications and you want to know about Discus. So you calculate the farthest viewing distance. That means how far can the user be from the screen based on the height of the image and the resolution. It's the first time in our calculations of distance from a screen that the resolution has been taken into play. In the old days, we used to use the 468 sort of rule, but That rule doesn't take into account resolution. When you're actually getting a 4K image and a 4K resolution, then you need to make sure that you're at the right distance to be able to see the detail if that's what you want to see. But like I said, that is not your most normal application of digital signage. Normally, you have what is called basic decision making, which is you're just looking at the image, and based on the information on the screen, then you're making decisions. That would be when you go to a fast food restaurant and you see that menu there on the ceiling or hanging from the ceiling, and you're looking at the menu to make decisions. So the standard is called Display Image Size for 2D Content in Audiovisual Systems. It was published in 2016. It is not for video. If you have moving video, this doesn't apply. That only applies to images. So you have the image, for example, of a menu in a fast food restaurant. That's the one that I like the best. So for that, you can calculate the distance of the farthest viewer. So how far away can I be from that screen and still see the detailed information and be able to read the information that's on the screen? And that's calculated with the image height times 200 times what is called the percent element, which is how big is each element in the screen in terms of letters, for example, compared to the total amount of the screen. This would be a 2% element, 3%, 4%, 5%. As you can see from the formula, the bigger the element, the farther away that you can actually move from the screen. The smaller the element, the closer that you have to be to the screen. This is what replaced the famous 150 rule. This is a little bit more accurate determination of the farther viewer for any kind of screen. And you can also determine the closer viewer. That's going to be more important if you're in an auditorium, because when you have somebody looking at a digital signage, they will never get close enough that they lose sight of the whole image. But if you also want the formula to calculate the closest viewer so that you can actually see the whole image, then you have to calculate a viewing factor times 1.732, and the viewing factor is the image height plus an offset. If the image is higher or lower than your eyesight, then you need to calculate an offset. So that gives you an idea of how to use Discuss not only for digital signage, but also for your regular installations. And when you actually follow the recommendation of the digital signage companies that are providing you with screens, mainly direct view LEDs with variable pitch, but it also applies to regular screens with the pitch that they come with that you cannot vary, then they have a formula that says that the distance to the farthest, the diagonal, of the screen should be the farthest viewer divided by 2. So you take the person that is farther away from the screen, maybe let's say 10 feet. And if it's 10 feet from the screen, you divide by 2, you get 5 feet, and 5 feet would be 60 inches. So you should use a 60 inches screen for a viewer at 10 feet to be able to see the information. And the pixel pitch, or how big the pixels can be in that screen for people to actually see the image correctly, is calculated based on the closest viewer. So you divide the closest viewer by 7 or 11. It's called the 7-11 rule. And that gives you a range of pixel pitches that you could choose from depending on what's available. And nowadays, considering the issues with supply chain, it's very important to have a range of whatever it's available. Translated into a kind of chart, this is what it looks like. So the farther you get away from the screen, okay, so the farther the closest viewer is from the screen. So if the closest viewer can only get to 28 feet from the screen, maybe that screen, it's in an area that is not accessible, people cannot walk close enough, then the bigger that you can actually create the pitch on the direct view LEDs, because you need actually to have the person able to see that particular component of the screen. If you have a screen that has a very, very, very small pixel pitch, like 0.6 millimeters, then somebody at 28 feet is going to have trouble looking at that. So typically, if you do the calculation for a regular 60, 70, 80 inches diagonal screens for 4K, They are all below the 0.6 millimeters. So those screens need the viewer to be relatively close to the screen. If you do the calculation for a 1080 screen, then you're typically around the 1 millimeter. So you are more or less in this range, and that will allow you to cover up to maybe 10 feet for the closest viewer. Amazingly enough, and that's the reason why iPhones and iPads retina screens have such amount of resolution and beauty of the picture, is because they are down to about 0.01 millimeters of pixel pitch due to the number of pixels and how small the screen is. Now, in terms of size of screen, I did some calculations here, and based on the formulas that I showed you before. And if you are actually working with a regular screen, you can actually get away with a 36 to a 60 inch screen in terms of diagonal, and be able to actually see everything that is on the screen correctly without having to go into direct view LEDs that have higher pitches. If you're going to have people farther away from the screen, then you can go into direct view LEDs with higher pitches, and this would be a 96 diagonal, 120 diagonal, and this would be a huge 168 diagonal. So you would certainly start building video walls based on different components. That's typically what you do when you buy direct view LEDs. You buy panels that you can connect with each other to create the diagonal that you want for the final image that you're going to be showing to the customer. So these graphs are important when it comes to being able to see the screen. So we have looked at the screen. We have indicated that we need management software, and we have indicated that we need a player. So now briefly, we're going to introduce to you the solutions that MuxLab can offer in the field of digital signage. As you know, MuxLab, it's a Canadian manufacturer, and that's an advantage right now with the pandemic. They still face sometimes shortages of some component like everybody, but they have an easier time of actually getting product to their customers because of the fact that they control their manufacturing. They offer essentially anything that you want in terms of audio and video, from over IP, direct, SDI, HDMI, etc. So think about the possibilities if you're going to create content and you're going to schedule or publish that content to show it to your customers. To create the content and plan your schedule, it's very easy if you have the correct content management software. And then by selecting the proper display and locating it at the right distance from your viewers, then you're going to make sure that they have a good experience when they interact with the messages that you're trying to send. So what we can offer you at MuxLab is the DigiSign Plus content management software. So it is a software that it's extremely simple to use. It allows you to create content by importing all kinds of material. It supports multiple formats for video, images, and audio. It allows you to include links, hyperlinks to HTML5 so that you can bring anything from the internet. It allows you to bring RSS feeds and widgets. It also has the capability for you to do yearly programming. So it's not a programming for a week, for a month. You can program a whole year so that you can set it and forget it, and then automatically you're going to have the content being shown at the right time that you want it to be shown. It also supports multiple windows and also picture-in-picture. So we'll show you some examples of the combinations that you can make of content that allows you to have a lot of information in just one screen. And it is compatible with MuxLab's Signage Player Plus and the local and public cloud devices that MuxLab is introducing shortly. So you can have send the AV content to any number of displays. You can connect it to all the AV over IP product line. You can schedule the content for the whole year. You can create multi-view layouts. You can add all kinds of text banners. And if you want to use the built-in templates for slides, you can do that too. So here you have, for example, during the creation of the slides, you have here access to all the widgets. You can bring your RSS, you can bring weather, you can bring video, you can bring images, you can do whatever you want when you bring the information into that particular slide that you're going to present. Here is an example at the airport. You can be telling people, welcome to Montreal. You have brought a widget that is actually showing the weather. You actually put in there also some information on one of the cafes that are located close to this digital signage, for example, or somewhere in the area of the airport where people are walking. And we can have here at the bottom a running screen, for example, an RSS feed that will come from the airline or from a travel company that is offering you different flights to different locations for different prices. So creating this kind of content to be displayed is fairly simple when it comes to the use of the content management software. Here we have another one that is more focused on some financial information. So we have here the different exchange rates that are available at the time. That could be also in an airport. We have a clock that is giving us the time and some telephone number to call a particular business. And then we have also a ticker here from NASDAQ or from the Canadian exchanges that are showing how the shares are changing in price, plus an image, you know, to attract people's attention to the fact that we're making our money grow through investments. So once you have created those slides, you can schedule it and you can say, well, I want food information at noon, and after noon at 12:30, I want to change the food information for some Bitcoin suggestion that people should be investing in Bitcoin, and at 5 p.m. I want to present some messaging to remind people that we are still on a pandemic and they need to follow some rules. So the scheduling is also very simple and it can be done for a whole year. So once you have created that particular content with the CMS software, now you have a series of slides, for example, or those slides also contain videos and they contain feeds, and you can store those slides in different locations, including a digital signage player plus, or you can actually communicate it with the digital signage player plus from another location so that it can be taken into your screen. So the digital signage player plus, it will support 4K 6444 or up to 4 1080p 60 Hertz videos on a single screen. You can actually do video streams, and because of the bandwidth that this device utilizes, you can do it via local LAN, but you can also do it through the internet, local files, or we'll talk about the local or public cloud that MuxLab also has. So you can actually bring your content from anywhere you want, which is the idea of working with AV over IP. This is like the last link in the chain of the AV over IP. We have the content anywhere and we can access it wherever we want, whenever we want, however we want. The device will upscale and downscale between 1080 and 4K depending on the content that you're providing. It allows you to create the slides and playlists that you can schedule up to a year, supports multi-views and picture-in-picture. It also supports a keyword dictionary, and it gives you proof of play. That means the display was actually played. So if you're actually providing services to companies that need for you to show that you actually played the content that they provided, you can have proof of play. It is compatible with DigiSign Plus CMS, so that means the content management software is going to discover all those players and make the content that they have created available to those players. And it is compatible with a local and public cloud device that MuxLab is introducing and developing. A closer look to it, it shows you that there is an Ethernet RJ45 link, which is what is going to connect this player to your local area network in order to be able to communicate the content and to have the CMS software control this player. Then you have two HDMI 2.0 connectors out, It also gives you the ability to extract video, so you have the embedder built in that will extract video from that audio in case that you prefer to put the audio, it will extract audio from that content in case you want to put that audio into a better sound system than just the regular speakers that the display may have. So that is built into the system. And there are 4 USB 3.0 connectors that are being there for future use, so they are not yet being implemented, but at the end of the presentation, Joe Teixeira is with us, and he may be able to answer any questions you may have regarding as to when they're going to become viable. But there's going to be ways to also interact with the USB 3.0 for this device, and the device runs on 12 volts DC. This is your typical application, okay? We start at the end where we're showing the content either on a video wall or on a monitor. What we have is an HDMI signal that is being created by the 570 player, and that player is getting that information from anywhere. It can come from the internet through a router into your switch and then into your device. It can come from the internal memory in the device. It could come from any other transmitters that you may have of AB over IP with H.264, H.265 compression connected to this network. As you know, on AB over IP, once you have a source and you codify that source into Ethernet and you adjust the bandwidth so it can fit into the bandwidth of the network that you have available, in most cases 1 gig, then that content it's available everywhere to be utilized if you have the right equipment to receive it. And the player here can actually receive any content that is introduced in the network also by any other MuxLab AB over IP transmitter. We have always a PC where we have the DigiSign Plus CMS software running. We may also have the network controller that MuxLab has to control the AB over IP installs, but all this is pretty seamless because the discovery is automatic. The 579 is designed to run on DHCP, so automatically once it connects to the network, if you have a DHCP server, it will be assigned an IP address, and then the DigiSign Plus CMS will do the discovery and find out all the players that you have in the system, and it will make the schedules and the information available to absolutely all the players. Here, in terms of infrastructure, I always like to remind people, be always aware of the HDMI connection from the player to the monitor or to the video wall. Fortunately, in digital signage, many times those players tend to be close by, but if they're going to be farther away, remember the limitations of HDMI transport. HDMI could go to around 15 meters with a regular HDMI cable. If you need to go longer than that, you're going to need some active HDMI or some kind of repeater so that you don't lose the signal. So from that point of view, always think of this connection between the player and your display as a potential weak link. Typically, the network has been tested, has been installed in structured cabling. We test every link so we know things are going to work. As long as you keep the distance at 100 meters maximum per link as per TIA, then you're not going to have any problem in that area. To me, the weakest link will be the portion where you connect your player to your display and you actually select an HDMI cable that is not appropriate, or an HDMI cable that doesn't allow you to run the bandwidth that you want to run on that particular connection. So be mindful in terms of infrastructure of this last part of the connection. Now, MuxLab is introducing towards the end of the year, should be here, the local cloud product, and the local cloud products will be actually a storage device. And it's a storage device where you can put all your content and work with many players. It can communicate with individual players, it can communicate with a group of players. It'll give you about 128 gigabit of internal storage, and it also will allow for USB memory storage devices so that you can bring in content for a particular moment in time or a particular application that you don't want to have it permanently in the device. It also will support multi-user access, so you can control who can access it and give the rights to the people that are going to access it. It's compatible with the content management software, and it's compatible with the 4K Signage Player Plus. And in 2022, and Joe can give you more information about that, we're going to introduce a device called the public cloud, which will also, like its name imply, have more public content than the local content that you yourself create. Now, if you're going to be using the CMS software of MuxLab, the DigiSign CSM software, content management software, then there are two options to have a license for that. You can have a free license on the DigiSign Plus Lite, but that limits the number of people that can use it and the number of things that you can do. If you have the professional license, which has a monthly subscription, then you have unlimited user, unlimited roles, unlimited everything. You can use all the widgets. You can do whatever you want. So from that point of view, the DigiSign Plus Pro gives you the ability to actually manage your system without any limitations, okay? And where do you see signage? Well, you see signage absolutely everywhere. If you're going to be in an airport, you're going to have an area where you have the digital signage media player, and you may be getting different feeds from the airlines, different feeds from different people that have businesses inside the airport, and you can then send that signal. You can actually send it to an AV over IP HDMI transmitter from MuxLab also, which will allow you then to do multicasting and to send it to other locations in the same airport. So there is a lot of things that you can do combining the digital signage media player with the fact that you can use also HDMI over IP H.264, H.265 transmitters. The Pro Digital Network Controller will control all the devices in the network for AV over IP, and the DigiSign CMS software will control everything that is related to the scheduling and managing of your content. You can have it also in a sports bar. And again, the idea is always the same. You're going to have the content in one location. From that location, you're going to go directly, if you have the distance, to the displays. But you can always put it into your AV over IP system. Okay, nowadays, AV over IP is becoming one of the most widespread ways to actually distribute and communicate AV over IP. So you have that possibility. And if you are in deep retail, will be the same idea. You will have maybe a video wall and also some screens here or posters to allow the customers to interact with your material and with your products. And you can also put it over an AP transmitter to take it to other areas if your retail display is fairly large, or if you are, you know, like the Bay or a large store that has long distances in between the different locations in that particular retail store. So let's look quickly at some of the screens of the DigiSign Plus to show you how intuitive it is to communicate with it. So you're going to do login. You can have username, passwords, and roles that are defined. So you have a lot of security when it comes to accessing your content software, which is very important. Then you're going to have a screen where you're going to be creating the slides. And where you create the slides is, I showed it before, where you're going to be bringing in videos, images, audio, HTML feeds, RSS, Instagram, whatever you want to put in there, different widgets. Then you're going to schedule it, and you're going to have the ability to schedule it if you want it on a yearly basis. You can actually copy your schedule to any day of the week so that you don't have to repeat the scheduling. There's a very flexible repeat function. So it is fairly easy to do the scheduling as a unit or as a group. And then the fact that you can discover your players. You can create players group. You can publish contents to the players or to the groups. And you can auto-publish from the cloud. So from that point of view, you have a total control of the units, and you don't have to do anything. As long as the units got their IP address from the DHCP server, the CMS software will actually discover the units and indicate to you all the units that are available. And when you need to do a player firmware update, it will also be done automatically through the network. Okay. And finally, you're going to be able to manage the user account, so you have total control. The administrator is the one that can actually do that, and you're going to be able to recover your password, define your password, or indicate the level of permission that a particular user has to actually work with the system. And you can set up and configure the software and also manage languages. The software will be available in different languages. Okay, so from that point of view, you can find MuxLab almost everywhere in almost every vertical, because our solution covers essentially all the applications that a end user will require, that a designer will use to design the solution for the end user, and that the installer or integrator will also take and put together for that particular end user based on the design. The last question would be how you implement a digital signage system. Well, the first step, I always like to say that it is to educate yourself. That's the best way that you can do to actually do anything. You need to educate yourself. The second part is you need to cut through the noise. So what I mean there is that sometimes there's a lot of noise about different applications, different solutions, different options. Everybody has the best, everybody does this, everybody does that. You need to know the technology. You need to understand the basics of the technology to be able to cut through the noise and to be able then to make the right decision, because it's all about your strategy. It is what you want to communicate to the user. When I do AV over IP, I finish saying that it's all about the application. Here, I like to say that it's all about the strategy. You need to have that strategy that we mentioned at the beginning in order for this to be successful. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that this was useful to you, especially go back and look at the discuss part of the presentation also, because that's something that you can use in your day-to-day work on audiovisual. If there are any questions, this is my contact information. You can also send me an email and ask me anything related to the technology. If you need more information on the particular products that we show, details, etc., then this is the contact information for the sales team at MuxLab.com.